Hello, gentlemen. Welcome back. It's Confidently Wrong. It'll be February by the time this episode comes out, which is crazy. In 2025, we are moving along in the years and dates of my life. Craziness. Like 1980s doesn't seem that long ago. It was 40 years ago, guys.
Dude, you old.
40 years ago.
You're dusting
Was
the
the
window.
80s. Speaking of the 80s, I was watching. I sent you guys this. You probably didn't watch it, but it was an essay.
Speaking of 80s,
How did you know, Wes?
By Screen that you didn't watch it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Screen Crush produced this essay.
Keep it moving.
About Star Wars, but what he used it to talk about too was how our culture, from the 60s to the 70s, well, even like 40s to 50s to 60s, 70s, like each of those time blocks, there's a very distinct sense of like style and sensibilities, and like you almost know immediately when someone is in that time period just because of the way they dress, their haircuts, the style, like the music, the way they talked. All of that is very like unique. But since, let's say, the mid 2000s or so, like 2005-ish era, like haircuts are relatively stable now, kind of at this point. Like the hairstyles are very similar to back then. You could fit somebody in today's style and their style, and you wouldn't be too far off. Clothes styles haven't changed dramatically since then and have been sort of more universal.
What does
it was
this
just
have
like
to do with Star Wars?
He made it work, but it was just like an interesting thing around how like
someone did.
Oh, he was making it work in that like the different eras of the Star Wars, so the different trilogies are all products of their time and addressing major issues of the time and the things that were going on in the world at that point.
Like Vietnam, well, it's like Star Wars trilogy being like a Vietnam type thing or something.
A little bit, right? A little bit after
George
that,
Lucas's version of Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Like that was like the type of movie he wanted to make but didn't, and he made it into an allegory instead.
Yeah, and then the prequels are, I forget what they said. It's just like these different styles and kind of the big things going on, and
like about like NATO and
building empires and that kind of stuff. And then the like the stuff that's more recent, it's a little bit more of a struggle because in some ways like there isn't this like universal overarching feeling other than like our anxieties, I guess. But it's he said like the time now is we often look back to the past. We aren't like defining our own style by today's standards. It's everything is a reference to the past. And so the sequel trilogies do that as well, right? Like everybody is looking backwards to the previous characters, to the previous events. And
that's why every movie is a reboot now.
Yeah, right. And so that's what they were making work, was like that's why our society loves to go back to these older, like to these sequels and blockbusters and blah blah. It's just because like we're a society that oftentimes looks back right now for like guidance and for things that we're into, rather than always pushing forward with a brand new style of our own. I was like,
so like hipsters in the 1940s weren't dressing as flappers from the 20s just to be cool,
right? That didn't happen.
Wasn't
right?
a thing.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know. I look at some old pictures from 10 years ago and I'm like, nah, that was some 2010 shit I had on. But
yeah.
But yes,
there's something there.
No, I agree that our culture has become much more homogenized over the last few years, especially with the internet and media now. Even of all, like I've realized this, even with like, and you probably realize this with students, Wes, we consume a lot of the same media as a lot of our students now in a way that we didn't in previous generations,
Well, and they've seen a lot of the stuff we grew up with. I'm almost surprised by like how many of them have seen Fresh Prince and Friends and
Well, in fairness, when we were kids, we were the same way. Like I grew up watching Tom and Jerry and Looney Tunes and all that stuff. If you timestamp it, it's 30, 20 years before. My mom grew up watching Scooby-Doo, so did I. So some of it, I think, is like a more universal human experience of like we watch the stuff our parents watch because that's not a new phenomenon. But I think with how media is consumed, yes, like nowadays, the hottest video games, everybody's playing it. Like the kids love Call of Duty. We're grown men with careers and we enjoy the same games as them. Like I'll check out some of the, I agree with the culture becoming maybe less time stamped in a way where people are craving nostalgia because it's harder to find compared to previous eras where things were maybe a little more defined and set. Interesting stuff.
Yeah,
check it out.
It was interesting.
I'll check it out.
Maybe it's
All right.
corporate industries trying to placate as many demos as they possibly can.
Absolutely.
It is. It's that too.
100%.
But that's not. But then again, that's not new, right? Because that's otherwise because by the time I was born, they still had rebooted Scooby Doo like 5 times. You know, I'm watching
Scooby Doo wasn't for adults though. Like it was like honestly never for adults in the way that it is now. Like now it's for kids and adults.
Yeah, the meta humor, the sarcastic reference. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so maybe it's just capitalism trying to just appeal to as many people as possible. It's not any deeper than that, folks. Money.
Money.
Can we get some at least?
Money.
Like I'm okay with it if we get the money.
Right.
We should get sponsored by Monarch Money or something like that. I've been using
their capitalism.
I've been using their app lately to try and set up our budget again. Good times.
But yeah, let's talk about.
I loved it.
Let's talk
about Old Man Pursuits. I think Sean asked me to talk about Old Man Pursuits. This is my new one. Is trying to get my budget in line through this app that I've been trying to use. All right, let's get into it. So this show is going to be a nice grab bag. What are the fellas watching type of show? There's been a whole bunch of like smaller things that we haven't agreed to watch all together. They haven't really appealed to all of us. Our schedules have been off. There was the holidays involved, and so we thought
there's nothing good out. Is it? I think that's part of the problem too, right? There's like
that's it.
There isn't anything must see. That's out.
Maybe that's
must
true.
See, must see is so relative now. Like the big flagship stuff is like we're between the big.
One of those is coming this year, though. One of those is coming this year. The Last of Us 2.
Yeah, and Invincible. I mean, there's a lot of big flagship stuff, but like, I mean, between flagship stuff, then it's kind of just this isn't everyone needs to watch it. It's more of a what more niche things are you into that are worth watching, but you're probably not about to just be talking about in the group chat all the time.
This episode is basically what filler are you indulging right now?
I like that. So here's how this is going to be somewhat structured, and then obviously we'll break the structure because we don't know how to stick with something. The person who has seen the show, and sometimes two of us have seen it, the person who has seen the show will kind of just give their little thoughts on the most recent season or movie or whatever that they watched, and then try to guess and predict whether the other two hosts would enjoy or hate the show. We might make some cameo appearances with some other longtime listeners and friends of the show, but that's kind of how we'll structure this. So we're gonna kick it off. It'll be kind of rapid fire. We got like 12 shows or something that we're gonna talk about and movies. So it'll be just a little appetizer of each, and then you can tell us, once you're listening, whether you've enjoyed any of these or whether you think that we would enjoy any of these. We're going to go first with a show that I promised we would talk about, but never did. Arcane.
And we're doing it now. We're fulfilling the promise now.
We are. Hey, we follow through eventually. Arcane Season 2 came out in the fall. Me and Brian watched it. I was like, Brian, I don't remember what happened, though, at this point, so can you talk about it? So, Brian, tell us, what did you think? Did you enjoy it? And who is it for?
Arcane Season 2 reminded us of who's doing the best animation in all of TV.
It's so good.
It's definitely Arcane, like just like its own art style, beautiful bold colors, and they take so much care crafting every single scene so that there's something cool visually happening. However, season 1 was epic, right? Season 1 was epic. You have the whole like Jinx and Vi broken sisterhood thing happening, toppers cool. and like underside people, that whole dynamic, and then the hex magic, and then like 5 years later, I don't even know how many years have elapsed.
I don't think it was
between
5.
Season 1 and Season 2. It feels like 5.
Okay,
that's what I'm going with.
It would have taken a long time to make it, so I'm not mad at them for that.
And there's still every bit of care in the animation in Season 2. However, I mean, there is care in the stories, but there are so many storylines going on in Season 2. They don't like give you a moment to really catch up on like and remind you of like who these characters are and like why they're important, why you want to be invested in them. They just fling you like headfirst into all this stuff. And actually, the whole Vi and Jinx dynamic, I feel like in a weird way wasn't the most prominent storyline. It sort of was, but it was just like one of many. And then every episode they are jumping in time, like some big twist has happened and changes the plot every single episode. they just throw you into a new thing that has already happened, and they kind of like try to catch you up on the
Then
new
there's like a
dynamic.
reality warping
And
situation at
then,
some point.
like, yeah, you know, and like
Not explained.
one of the main city council people is like trapped in this like alternate like blood torture world or something, and she turns out to be like, you know, one of these like mystic women or something like that.
Something.
Just like a ton of stuff happening, and they do a lot of their exposition in music video format, which looks really cool, feels really awesome, but is like, I have no idea what the heck is going on. Like, what are we supposed to get out of this? And because there's so much of that happening every episode, like just something big and new taking place, and you just have to catch up somehow, just left me feeling like I have no idea what I watched for 9 episodes. It looked awesome. There were some like really cool moments, but I can't put it together in my brain. So this is clearly not a West show. But I do think, Savon, you would love it. Like you would go like really deep and ham into the lore, because there's tons of lore and I think that is part of the issue that I was struggling with. Like I just couldn't grasp it all.
You don't want to learn the fictional history of another universe?
Yeah. And I'm like, how does the magic work in this world? How does the science work? And like, why is any of that important? Like, I couldn't tell you. It was definitely a vibe, and I was trying really hard to focus, and I just could not in season 2.
Wait,
but people love it.
Wait. I want to point out that I had said in the pre-show where we had a pre-conversation that I was like, there was a lot, and I was really confused by a lot of this. And Savon was like, "You mean it was a show with story?" But now Brian has validated me, so thank you, Brian, for having my back. It wasn't messy.
It was still a funny burn from Savon. That's why I didn't interject.
I'm gonna be honest. The only reason I'm not totally eating crow and backpedaling is because Brian doesn't say it often. So if he says it, it carries some weight, and I'll give him a legitimate pass. To be clear, there's a little bit of a double standard, but it's with purpose. It's a double standard that I think makes sense. Like Brian doesn't pull that card often, so I'm like, okay, Brian, you're usually very good about being able to.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Normally you're able to. Okay, I'll throw you, because normally I'm like, Wes, bro, I feel like you'll be asking for footnotes for Cat in the Hat, so I'm like,
that's how bad the experience probably was for Wes.
Oh my God, like, Wes, that had to have been awful then.
Oh, okay.
Brian,
like, his brain was probably just like True Detective, like corkboard with all the lines. Like, what?
If Brian was trying super hard, it's like, yo, this is hard, Wes. I feel like your brain was potato
how
soup.
many times I rewatched certain scenes being like, where did this come from? Who are they talking about? What is happening? And I had to rewatch the last like 5 minutes to see if they addressed it. And I'd be like, oh, okay, that makes more sense.
Okay, we'll go. Hold on, we'll go to the next show though for time. But like, I will say this: I did watch like the first half of Arcane season 1. Okay, it is a lot happening. like it wasn't one of those, oh my God, I'm lost, but I was like, whoa,
season 1 you can follow.
I need to look, but still, it was still like cool, I should not be twiddling my thumb. Yeah, it's a good show. I rock with it.
Okay.
My problem was just finding time, locking in, giving it the attention it deserves so that I can take it in rather than just treating it like homework.
Would Tony be into it?
No.
Okay. All right, let's move on.
I asked, but she's not.
Yeah. All right. The next show we were going to talk about, I watched this one. This was Skeleton Crew. It's a Star Wars story, or at least it takes place in the Star Wars universe. And they introduced this idea of a planet called Aten, which is kind of a utopian society. It's very suburban. And these people just go about their day, and they don't really question the way that things are. And then these 4 kids end up on this space adventure. They kind of end up like running away, or they end up on a ship. I mean, this happens early on. They end up on a ship, and then they go on space adventures, and they meet Jude Law. So
is he a Jedi in this?
I'm not gonna spoil that.
Okay.
So that's
yes.
It's an open question. And it very much feels in the vein of like E.T. and people reference the Goonies a lot, which I haven't seen, and I do think they had that in mind. So I can't say whether it was like how it was like the Goonies, but apparently it has Goonie vibes to it. and it's just these 4 kids on like this adventure, and they're scared, but they're also like delighted at the prospect of adventure because their lives are fairly like safe and non-risky where they live. And then there's a little bit of things where like they get to meet all these like cool characters that are like pirates and all this stuff, and meet people who are dangerous and like actually out to cause harm, and how they react in those moments is like interesting too. I think overall the show, the main thing, I told these guys earlier that like I watched a lot of YouTube recaps on it, and those folks love the show. They're like, yeah, there's so much detail, and like we love that like these characters come into play, and we're introduced to this idea of like how Star Wars was for people who are regular but not Jedi, and like what their lives were like sometimes, and how like the pirate crews were also like causing havoc in a way that like didn't have anything to do with the Empire really. And I did appreciate those things, but I think part of the thing that's difficult is like the kids are pretty young. I mean, they're like maybe 10-year-old kids, and the things that they're like doing are just like you get a sense of like who they are, but I don't know that I like truly like really cared about any of the kids, and they're on screen so much and really leading it, and that it makes it sort of a show that you're like, this was cool, but like I don't need another season of that.
Yeah, Weston's like, I got my own kids.
You sound good.
I mean, but there's been there have been movies about like kids that do a great job showing like what it is from their perspective or what their concerns are, and makes you feel things.
But like a group of kids.
You never like kids in movies. I feel like every time there's kids or movies in the show, you are never happy with them, or you're always upset with them for doing kid stuff.
It's not always, but yeah, I think it's not my preference, I think. But there are
like an 80-20.
Yeah, that's probably right. That's probably like I don't know if you guys ever saw Wonder with the kid. I don't know, his name is like Augie or something. Love that one. Finding Neverland. Love that one. Those like have kids in kind of lead roles. But yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to pull off when you have kids as leads, especially when they're younger, right? Like Harry Potter, the kids when they're younger are not super great actors, but as they age up and become better at their craft, I think the show, the movies become better, which makes sense, right?
You're just at home.
Better at your job.
Kids can't act for shit. These kids suck, bro. Oh my god, they're awful actors.
Spending too much time doing schoolwork. Focusing on their acting.
Y'all get some better actors. God.
And I think there was some.
Can I get de-aged Javier Bardem?
Oh my
please?
God. Okay. Yeah, I just think it's like it makes it a little bit tricky for the show to happen. I don't know. I don't think either of you would like the show. Brian,
the part that I saw, I hated.
Yeah, I mean, you hate everything Star Wars, anyways. At this point,
hover bikes in a Star Wars suburb, yuck.
I thought the hover bikes were actually one of the coolest parts.
Well, we know Brian hates Star Wars. So.
Yeah, Brian hates Star Wars, and Savon, I don't think it's for you. I don't think there's a whole lot that you'd be like, oh yeah, this adds like a lot of layers for me, or things you'd really have to like relate to.
It sounds like Andor, but worse. Just like, oh, so we don't get any of the cool Star Wars shit, and it's kids. Nah,
Yeah.
B, I'm a pass on that, big dog. You can hold that one.
I think there are people who would enjoy this, and clearly there are. But I don't think this one's for everyone. It's I don't know, and you don't get like real cool fight scenes. Like it's yeah. So that's where I'm at on this one. I'm glad I watched it, but yeah, I didn't need to watch it. All right, let's get to the next one. Brian, you're up.
Squid Game Season 2, the long-awaited return. Actually, I don't know if it's long-awaited, but Squid Game, such a huge global phenomenon. Right? That they even did an actual Squid Game reality game show with real people, competing in a Squid Game, where if they lost, I don't know if you guys have seen it, if they lost, they actually had blood packs that burst, right? To denote that they died in the game.
Oh my God.
It's all sorts of effed up. And then
they did that?
The woman that won was like a Vietnamese refugee, like middle-aged woman or something. Actually, I don't know if she was a refugee, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. So they made a Squid Game Season 2.
Brian, are you and I middle-aged now?
Yes, technically.
It's called your peers.
Yeah. I went to high school with her. Um, I went to all boys high school, so that's
That's
interesting. So anyways, Squid Game season 2 comes back, right? And we're following the same main character, our guy. I don't even know his name. I don't know any names in Squid Game. Let's be
Feels
honest.
racist.
Like
Feels
no one
racist.
does. It's just like hard to remember because you're just reading the subtitles. You can't even hear it right when they're speaking.
They
Like,
also call each other by their numbers a lot of times too.
yeah. So anyway,
Yeah,
it's the
that's
guy
why.
that won season 1 of Squid Game, right? And he decides he wants to take down Squid Game because he realizes what an awful piece of cruelty this whole infrastructure, this whole enterprise is. He wants to take it down. So he's putting all the money that he won into doing just that. And like he's hiring gangs of people to find the guy in the subway station that's playing that silly red and blue disc game, that introduces people into the Squid Game world. So he's enlisting thugs to find them. He's buying caches of like military grade rifles and stuff like that, and training himself to be able to fight basically a war against the perpetrators of Squid Game. And so ultimately he ends back up in the Squid Game as a contestant and starts outing himself as a former winner and trying to convince all the other competitors there that they need to exit the game and save their lives and just end Squid Games forever. But the twist is, and Savon and I were talking about this earlier. I'm going to spoil a little bit. The twist is early on, once he gets into the Squid Game, the mastermind behind the Squid Game, who was revealed in season 1, is actually the brother of the cop that is also investigating the whole Squid Game stuff, right? He realizes that, okay, the former winner is back. So now the boss is also going to be in the Squid Game as a competitor as well and befriend him. And so you got this whole cat and mouse game that is happening between the former winner and the guy that runs Squid Game. And they get into it. There are, of course, games that are played. A lot of people die. The games are different this time around. Well, one is the same, and then it changes over the course of the season, and then things take a real turn where we don't follow the same format as season 1, where they go through the whole game and there's a winner. That I'm spoiling a lot here. That doesn't happen. The show takes a different turn, to follow the storyline as they sketch it out, right? Like, this guy is out to end Squid Game, so like they are following that storyline in this. And I think it is a fun and interesting watch. I do think though that because he's out for revenge, the main character, who was really kooky and heartfelt and sincere in season 1, is now grizzled, angry, scared also, but he clearly has been traumatized. And so the tone of this season 2 is, it does feel a little heavier at times. And so like there's kind of like less the joy of all the surprises that happen in season 1, which is part of what made it so watchable and bingeable. And instead you just want to find out what's happening with this cat and mouse game, which is compelling on its own, but has a very different tone. And so I think this is not exactly a must watch, but I do think it is a fun watch. And I actually think both of you guys would, enjoy it, but you won't love it.
Okay.
That's my take.
Nice. And Savon, you said you checked out already episode 1?
Yeah, well, I was episode like 1.5,
Okay.
and
All right.
I honestly need Brian to say the things he said to re-engage me with the show. Otherwise, I had some complaints that were like, I don't know if I'm gonna watch another season of this.
Yeah.
So, all right, good to know.
All right. Next up, Savon. What is something that's in your bag right now?
Yeah, Castlevania Nocturne. That's so I've talked in the past about the Castlevania series based on the video games. Incorporates a lot of the characters, but essentially takes place in like an analog of our world, but in like more so like several hundred years ago. So in this case, sometimes the 1600s, 1700s, 1100s, whatever. But it's a world with vampires, demons, monsters, all that stuff. There's vampire hunters, monster hunters, very dark, bleak world, lots of violence, blood, all that good stuff. The new season, the second half of the new season just dropped this past week, which takes place during the French, I believe the French Revolution is around this time. But yeah, it ended with the lead vampire villain basically winning and kind of taking over all of France, and our protagonist getting the ass bust, and then a character from the last season showing up. But good show. You don't need to watch
your ass actually busted.
Yeah, you don't need to watch the games or play the games to really appreciate it. Whether you like it or not, if you're someone who's into just really good action animation shows with really well choreographed fight scenes and really dope art, you'll definitely enjoy it at the bare minimum. But like, I think anyone who's like an action animation fan is going to enjoy this show. The story's good, the characters are good. And it's not often you get a show that has a good, engaging story, but then has some of the coolest choreographed fight scenes you've ever seen, and takes on power sets that you've seen before, but the characters fight in very fun, creative ways. To where she's using fire, ice, lightning. Okay, that's nothing new, but the way they use it in the fighting is like, you're just sitting there like, that was dope as shit.
Would I enjoy it as much as like Blue-Eyed Samurai?
Did the violence from Blue Eye Samurai turn you off?
No. Awesome.
Is demon type violent stuff throw you off? Like that same Blue Eye Samurai violence, but it's more monsters and demons rather than like just generic samurai dudes.
I don't know. Maybe.
Then I think you should give it an honest try. I think if you watch like the first couple and then the first season, it's really, really short. You could watch the first 2 episodes and you'll know whether or not this show is for you or not. Okay. But if you like action and action animation at the bare minimum, you will be entertained. Wes, I think both of y'all would enjoy it.
Okay.
Y'all like it.
I've tried to get on board. It's a little like the style is a little too dreary for my taste.
It's dark.
It's a lot of gray.
Yeah, it's
a lot
dark.
of gray colors. It's dark. There's some grotesqueness, which isn't my favorite thing. But like I recognize like how cool it can be.
It's not a happy world.
I will probably try it again at some point.
No, but I'm with you. Despite the dope animation, fighting, all that cool creative design stuff, this is a sad, dreary, dark world where vampires and demons are pretty regularly effing people over, and that just doesn't lend itself to a fun, colorful color palette outside of blood.
All right. Let's try and shorten it up here for each of these. Brian, you're up next. What do you got?
Dragon Prince season 7. Oh my god!
No idea there was 7 seasons.
Final
of the show.
season. This Netflix animated series, which in some ways is an heir to Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Interesting.
Because a lot of the alumni from that worked on that show created the Dragon Prince, right? And that's the reason why I started watching. But the Dragon Prince, unlike Avatar, takes on a more fantasy, traditional fantasy genre, right? So it's like humans versus elves in a Middle Earth type place. The elves, it's also elves and magical creatures like dragons and stuff like that. They're kind of warring, and then the young prince, 2 young princes actually come to be in possession of a dragon egg, and they're trying to return it to the dragon, who's on across enemy lines, of course, and they want to instead try to create a peaceful world, peaceful coexistence between the magical side and the human side of the world. And the first 3 seasons of this, I can't recommend enough, honestly. Like if you like Avatar, it's definitely more on the kid side of things, but the lore is really interesting, and I think they do a lot of fun, surprising things with these genre tropes. The show kind of loses its bearing a little bit seasons 4 through 5. I think 6, they pick it back up and they give us, this like redemption storyline that we really wanted for one of the main villains, and he does the biggest sacrifice thing at the very end of season 6. And then season 7, you're like, okay, they're back on track. It's gonna be awesome. And it was so bad. There's so many illogical things that are happening. Like, why would this character do this? Why didn't they just save the dragon by doing that? Like, they clearly had an opportunity to do that. Like, who gives a fuck about this other character? Like, why are we even spending time there?
Oh no.
And it was just so frustrating. And you're like, wow, like the people that were involved in Avatar really just needed the main guys to keep them in check, like to rein it all in, and remind them that like story needs to take precedence and primacy and be the thing that you deliver on. And they really flubbed the ending on this. Like it was fine, but yeah,
I want to watch 7 seasons of this.
You do not want to make it to season 7.
Sounds like you just want season 1 through 3.
Yeah. One, and so like the interesting thing though is that like it's done in kind of like epic chapters. So season 1 through 3 is kind of self-contained. And then 4 through 7 is called The Mystery of Erebos. And then they have a whole nother third part sketched out. But I don't know if Netflix is gonna greenlight it or not. So this could be a finale. So yeah, Dragon Prince. I don't know if anyone else out there is watching it. It was good until it wasn't.
All right.
Don't feel like this is a should watch.
The next one, me and Brian have both seen. It was pushed heavily on the Netflix. It was the main title card every time you logged into Netflix for like 2 weeks straight.
Number one movie during the Christmas holiday.
Yeah, and when I flew, I flew
home.
What
the hell is this?
I flew home to visit my parents, and I was like, I'll just watch it. We'll see what happens. And highly entertaining. The kids at school, they also thought it was entertaining, but they used the word good on this movie, and I would not at all. This movie was not good in any like way, shape, or form, other than it was entertaining. So like, if you want to be entertained, highly enjoyable.
It's a pretty big deal for your entertainment. If it entertains you.
Yeah, if you want it to be making sense and be any kind of believable, wrong movie for you. Not at all. This is much more in line with like Speed, Keanu Reeves' old movie.
Oh, that's a classic.
Yeah, this is not the classic.
It kind of like reminded me of that in a way. Like it's kind of like one of those throwback movies.
Yeah, it was very throwbacky. It's like
it was like that
phone
thriller
booth
movie that was Phone Booth, right? Yeah,
like
it was kind of like Phone Booth.
What's old is new again. I don't recommend
these compliments or slights?
Well, what's the premise here?
What?
What's the premise of this movie?
All right, the premise is that this young man who's a TSA agent, he receives an earbud that ends up in his line, and he puts it in his ear, and on the other line is someone who wants him to allow a bag to get through, even though it's not going to pass the security check. And he threatens all kinds of mayhem if he doesn't obey his wishes. Like he's going to kill his fiance or kill the people in the airport. He actually does kill somebody in the airport at some point. So it's just typical like, hey, we've got your feet to the fire. Like, do this thing for me, and I'm gonna and then we'll all be good, and I'll get to go on my way and do this thing that I want to do, which is another criminal act. Brian, what? And
of course, the bag is not really a spoiler. The bag is full of like explosives and chemical toxins or whatever.
So it's not something you want to let through in an airport, security check usually. Brian, what do you think?
The other guy at the end of the earpiece though is Jason Bateman playing the villain, like a cold-hearted, like, but very like matter of fact, merc, basically.
Jason Bateman, that sounds
terrorist type
gangster.
stuff. He's kind of great. I love him in this role. He's just like telling this guy like it is. He's like, yeah, you got to do this.
Yeah, you're not in control. I'm in control.
Do X or Y happens type energy.
Who?
Do X or Y happens. Just he's not flair. Just
exactly.
I like Jason Bateman. I like it.
Jason follows through.
Jason Bateman is great in this. I think it's really entertaining up until like the final act where you're like, what Wes says, like, what? That makes no sense. Like, what did you do with the bag? Like, come on, man, really? But I do think it does have the vibe of those other movies that we talked about. Which is kind of like a fun popcorn thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Don't we need more of that?
I'm happy
then?
I
Isn't
watched
that what
this.
we need?
I'm happy I watched it.
Wait, isn't that what
it
we
was
need
entertaining.
then? Like a simple
Not-
movie with a premise, it has its action, is not tied to a cinematic universe.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we wanted? It's not a reboot.
That's
Isn't
what I'm
this
saying.
Isn't this what the people want? Damn it!
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It was entertaining. I watched it with my mom, and she had a great time.
I can see this is definitely a watch with your mom type movie. I can see
Yes.
this being some on the couch.
Our whole
yeah.
family was like around the TV. Like it's
Like,
it is
ooh, what's gonna
something-
happen? Is he gonna stop the nerve agent?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And like you kind of know what like the outcome already.
Is this like a dad comes in and out the room and he's like he's progressively more interested each visit into the room?
Oh, absolutely. He's like,
Eventually,
he's still wearing the earpiece.
Eventually, he's just standing back behind this whole bunch of standing and watching.
I thought you weren't watching, Dad.
I just want to see what happened. So did they catch him?
That's exactly what would happen if a dad came in to watch this movie.
This is
Oh my God.
Oh, what you watching, son?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Exactly right. It's like visually interesting enough that like, yeah, it's gonna catch your attention. It is not gonna win anybody's Academy Awards at all. But yeah, and
the awards of our heart.
I mean, the biggest thing that like I would say is like it just doesn't make sense to me that like they would try so hard to go through all this trouble to like attack one plane or one person like on a plane in an era of TSA. It's like there are so many other ways you could get to that person that didn't involve all of these shenanigans. And the other part is like, why would he be there in person and do all of these things in person and show the guy his face in person? Like none of that makes any sense to me at all. So it was a bad plan from the start, and but that's what it is. All right. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think you'd enjoy it, Savon.
I feel like any movie about a terrorist plot you're gonna be able to poke holes in it because real terrorist plots are either
They're all simple.
I think this is a great movie to pregame
complicated.
too.
Yeah, I can see this. You drinking some beers before? Yeah, this is good. You get the energy you want before a
Jason
night
Bateman.
out. This is the energy you want before going out with your friends. What you
No,
just
it's
watch?
too serious.
What about
too serious for that.
The nerve gas in the airport?
It takes itself too seriously.
Ooh,
Like Steven Seagal could be in this movie and be like, okay, that's the kind of energy we have here.
That would be amazing. They should recast the main guy.
Funny. That's funny.
Right? Steven Seagal, something like that. This
All right.
is very 90s movie. All
right.
right, let's keep going.
I'll keep this one quick.
right.
What if season 3? I watched it.
I didn't even check it out.
Yeah, I watched it. It was adequate.
Mid.
It was
mid.
adequate. Like some of the
Yeah.
episodes were
Say it.
entertaining, some of them weren't. Ultimately, my issue with What If boils down to when you have something called What If that's about these brash, ridiculous hypotheticals, you really aren't grounded in anything. But I think they were still too determined to do retellings of MCU stories and
like,
MCU
why?
versions of characters,
Eh.
which I think just creatively stunted the show as a whole. And partially it's because they wanted to promote some of their newer characters, and I get that.
Boo.
But when you're using the MCU version of Falcon and Bruce Banner in like the mech episode, it's like one of those, if you had just made this separate iterations of the characters, not so tied to their real life versions, there would have been a maybe better separation of it rather than just, I just think it took away from the what if concept rather than what if, Falcon did blah, blah, blah. It feels like it's what if Anthony Mackie's version of Falcon did blah, blah, blah. Or Steve Rogers, or, Chris Evans' version of that. And that, I think, just tied the show too heavily to the MCU when otherwise tonally it should be so separate from, it should probably be the furthest from the MCU of any of the Marvel Studios productions that we've gotten. And so I think that just put a damper on it because it's too often I felt like I'm just looking at a different version of the movie character.
Agreed.
And that just took me out of it, unfortunately. And there were some good premises, like the Kate Bishop Hawkeye Shang-Chi episode that was almost like the Shanghai Nights type energy. Was so fun to watch, but it was just, I was too connected to like this is just the movie versions of the characters, and that alone took the sales out of what was honestly probably my favorite What If episode. But all I have to say, There was a lot of potential. There were some very entertaining moments. Like I will say, Storm with all her cool God Hammer shit and her long speeches was dope. But ultimately, I think they put themselves creatively in a box or something where they should have had the full sandbox. That took the wind out of its sails. I'm a diehard Marvel fan, and even I was kind of like left feeling, man, I wouldn't recommend this to either of you.
Wow.
Nice.
I kept falling asleep during the
I made
kaiju
the right
episode,
choice.
so yeah.
There's
All
a
right,
couple.
move
There's
on.
a couple of entertaining episodes, but as a whole, I wouldn't watch it.
All right, let's move on. Well, which episodes would you say to watch then?
The Kate Bishop Shang-Chi episode was my personal favorite. The idea
All right.
of that little kung fu fighter and marksman with the pistols thing was sick. I wish they leaned into that away from the movies.
All right,
We even
Nice.
got the hood.
the hood. All right, next, Brian.
What
I never heard of this
Uh,
one.
No Good Deed. Another one of like the random top 10 shows on Netflix that
Okay.
popped up during the holidays.
Who's in it?
Lisa Kudrow and Ray Romano
Oh, I
are
like them.
a couple in like a fancy Los Angeles neighborhood pre-fires. And they're
Jesus.
trying. There's a dark comedy about them trying to sell this house. And, of course, there are a lot of interested buyers, but what they're hiding from everybody is the fact that a murder happened at the house. And so they're trying to hide that. And then some of the neighbors have their own, or not neighbors, but prospective buyers have their own issues and agendas. But, of course, this makes for some very funny situations. I think Lisa Kudrow and Ray Romano are very watchable to me, even at their old ages. And this is definitely not a Savon show. Like, stay away from this, Savon, like with a 10-foot pole.
Why wouldn't I watch it?
However, Wes, I do think you would identify with the real estate aspect of this show. And some of that, I don't know if you'll actually.
It might be too on the nose though.
the
Like
dark
we had
humor stuff.
We had a hard time selling our house too.
I hope there wasn't a murder at your house.
They were
This
rats.
shit, this shit look boring.
That's what I'm saying. Do
It's
not
about
touch
people
us,
selling a
Savon,
house.
at
Why
all.
would you? This is just an HGTV drama. What the this?
It's dark comedy. So I actually think it's kind of funny. Like Dennis Leary is in it. For whatever
Is
that's
it dark
worth.
because
Like,
it puts you to sleep.
Owen Wilson is in it.
I'm intrigued. All right.
I'm a night owl, so I don't fall asleep in the dark. Anyway, next.
All right. That sounds good. I would watch that. All right. I think have we talked about Silo already on this show, or did we just describe it to Savon like pre-show?
No, I think last episode we talked about Silo actually.
Okay, then I won't say too much about it. Then let's actually move on. It ended, or the season 2 wrapped up. And I did enjoy how it ended. Savon, I'm not 100% sure you would like it or not like it. It's like a mystery. It's a little bit of a mystery show. It's a drama, conspiracies going on a little bit. So
It's a different version of Fallout.
Ooh,
It's like a more serious.
There we go. Look at that tagline. Brian
Yeah,
know how
it's
to
a more
draw a brother
serious
in.
version.
but none of the things that you liked about Fallout are
It's
in
a
this.
way more serious version of Fallout. Yeah, with none of the
Give it a
things outside of the Fallout shelter actually happening.
Okay, but
It's
that could
only
still-
within the shelter.
could maybe be interesting. Like I said, what's stopping me from Silo was just the Apple TV Plus part, not the show
Okay.
itself. So we'll
Well,
see.
I recommend it. I don't know if you'd love it, honestly, but I do recommend it. I really think most people would like it. Brian, you enjoyed season 2, even though it was a little different.
I think season 2 was spinning its wheels a lot.
Oh,
and
that's what you said.
was
Yeah,
spending
that's what you
like
said
too
last time.
much time with characters I don't give a fuck about.
Okay.
But the ending, like you're still really curious. You still
Yeah.
really want to know
Like,
what's
what
going
happened,
on.
right?
And so by the time we hit the finale, like the finale is a pretty strong finale, and leaves us with some other
More questions.
earth-shattering questions.
Yeah.
Which is what the show hangs its sleeve on.
Hangs its yeah.
Is that the idiom? I don't know.
Definitely
No,
not, but
it's
we'll go
okay.
with it. I love
Hangs
that.
its hat
Hang its
on,
sleeve.
but it's okay.
Hangs something on. It's
All
a
right, let's
peg.
keep going. I checked out the first episode or 2 of this one, but Savon, you said you watched the whole thing, so Savon, take it away.
Yeah, Creature Commandos. It's
Hey!
it's a pretty fun show. Ultimately, it's a spiritual successor to Suicide Squad. It actually takes place in the same universe. If you watch the first episode, it makes direct reference to the events of Peacemaker, so they wanted to pretty much canonize this show in the new DC universe. So just for context, whatever you're seeing here, pretty sure this is going to also exist in Gunn's larger live action universe too, just because of like I said, we got Costas, who still had the hurt leg, and Amanda Waller, and referencing Adebayo blowing the whistle on her mom, which is the plot of the show. The Suicide Squad is no longer a thing. Amanda Waller, being the government bureaucrat and monster she is, loopholes it into having creature commandos who are technically not humans. So it's basically Suicide Squad, but animated, but with even more ridiculous characters, because there's a technicality of them not being human. So you have the bride, who is literally the bride of Frankenstein, but she's a badass with guns and can fight. You have Rick Flag Sr., so the dad of the late Rick Flag from the Suicide Squad, played by, I think, John Bernthal, voices him. But
no, it's the guy that plays Runlow from Captain America.
Oh, yes, thank you. John Grillo. John Grillo's his name. But yeah, the basic premise is you have this misfit of characters, and they go through these clandestine missions for the U.S. government. It's literally the plot to the Suicide Squad. There's some kind of thing, but the characters are all very ridiculous, and overall, it's an enjoyable show. The animation's fun, fight scenes are fun. It has that Harley Quinn style, almost Adult Swim, snippy James Gunn humor, so you're just going to be laughing at the one-liners and stuff. It can be a little on the nose with some of its parodies, like it makes fun of incels, but even for me as like an incel disliker, it can feel a little that Gunn on the nose, very like he's not subtle about the things he's making fun of, as subtle as a brick through a window, which is to say not at all. But good show, entertaining, characters have cool backstories. My only real gripe is that it still just ultimately feels like you're rewatching another Suicide Squad thing, and he loves to do his musical numbers and stylized bits that can feel a little heavy-handed of like, all right, there's a little too much Gun going on, let's dial it back. But entertaining show. I would think y'all would each enjoy it, even though I think you would each have very specific gripes about the show. You would still enjoy the show. A few too many gratuitous fan service shots, in my opinion. There's a few moments where I'm like, is this a low budget porno? Why are you having a shot of this woman's? It's like not egregiously, but Wes, like, am I tripping? There's a few moments where I'm like, hey, we do not need to see Rick Flag's bulge in this front camera. Like, it's one of those, like, you could have not, and you did. And
I was
my question more so is like, why, bro?
So yeah, I was gonna say that was actually interesting in that I was like, this is like a really like sexy scene, especially for like a cartoon. But even in like live action, you're just like, they showed like the hotness and the chemistry between these two, and like, all right, like, you know, like, well done, I guess. You know, you're right, we didn't need it, and it didn't need to be there.
We didn't need the princess like damn near slow stripping, spending an obnoxiously long amount of time trying to seduce this man. I'm like, all right, y'all could have made this point, and now it's going. You know how it is. Like, nothing wrong with adults and sexuality, but you can tell when a scene goes on a little longer than it needed to, or the camera shot was a little too. Was like, all right, did you have to zoom in on her ass from that angle?
There was definitely some side boob.
I've seen a lot of anime.
Like I'm out here like the animators are clearly working with one hand tied behind their back or something, or one hand.
Where's
like,
the other hand?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, let's dial it back a little bit, but that's a minor gripe. Y'all would each enjoy Creature Commando just as a low, for the same reason that you enjoyed Harley Quinn.
Yeah, I need to go back to Harley Quinn.
Well, there's a new season of that out too.
Yeah, there's a lot. I need to catch up on that too. There's a lot of catching up.
I think I'm still on season 2 on that one, but on this one, I will say, so I haven't seen very much. I've seen like an episode or two, and the little backstories we're getting on the bride in the part that I'm watching or that I have watched is really good. Like the way that they're like rolling it out and like introducing us to like the different layers of it, and there's like a mix of flashbacks and current parts, and like I was like, okay, like in contrast to something like the Suicide Squad, where you don't get a ton of backstory on them, you don't get to see like their motivations as much. You get a little bit, right? They do an okay job on that, but it's just a 2-hour movie, right? But now he's got 8 episodes or 10 episodes to dive in, and you're getting to see who these characters are.
Everybody gets their boohoo backstory, and you actually learn a lot about the character Weasel, for example, who was an absolute joke who gets absurdly fleshed out.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So I think that's cool. I mean, it's just like, oh, what a great way to use this like format to introduce things, and
it's a fun, easy watch. If you want a fun, easy watch that's not long, you should check out Creature Commandos. The two of y'all would be entertained.
It's on Max. All right, next one. Black Dove, also a Netflix special. It's been high on their top shows in the past couple of weeks, so I decided to check it out. It's I think you best describe it as like it's an action thriller, like sort of if you like James Bourne kind of movies or Jason Bourne kind of movies. I'm just calling everything James. I'm just gonna say James now from now on. James Knightley stars in this show, and yeah, it's a little
Who's
bit
James Knightley? Wes?
Keira Knightley, is actually in this show, and she's the main star. Nobody else is a big star that I can tell, but a lot of cool like role characters being played here. I definitely recommend it to Brian. Would not recommend it to Savon. You might like it, Savon. I don't know. And there's you get like some assassins going on, some great set pieces. There's a mystery going on as to like what actually happened because a couple of people got shot in the first episode and died. And then Keira Knightley plays an undercover agent for a I don't know, like a mercenary kind of act. She's not part of a government agency. And she plays an undercover agent who spies on her husband to feed information to different people. But yeah, I don't know. Super enjoyable.
Spying on her husband.
Yeah.
Ooh.
He's the Secretary of Defense or something like that. Yeah, so she's not just like a spy who does her technical thing. She has clearly some tech skills, but she also has some physical fighting skills that she's picked up over the years as part of her job as the secret agent kind of thing. So pretty cool. And then and then she has these moments where like she's not necessarily on board with the agency anymore, and it's her trying to figure out how to like get out of this pickle that she's in. Thumbs up. Brian, you would like it.
I'm not sold on the description, but
Okay.
maybe.
It's not as good. It's like not as good as Slow Horses. Like it's not that deep. This is much more like, the Pirates of the Caribbean version of that.
Oh god. Oh god.
But it has
Which
heart.
Keira Knightley was in, I think.
Yeah, that's why I made the
she
reference.
was.
But the one of the assassins that she works with a lot is very like conflicted on his feelings. He's good at being an assassin, but he's also it was interfering with his personal life and his love life, and he chose the life of the assassin over that. But it's now that relationship is now kind of coming back into the picture, and he's having to like figure out like whether he really wants to recommit to this assassin life or whether he's maybe willing to give it up, or maybe if he can find a middle ground where he can still be in it. Unclear to this point. So there's definitely like a lot going on. The actors do a great job like showing their emotions and showing what they're struggling with, and you feel it, and it feels real. And I don't know, I think high five, well done to them, where they could have really like I think taken a different route and made it like much more popcorny, and they didn't.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The plot itself is not, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not like Slow Horses where they're having to like uncover, and do all this sleuthing work. Like they're doing stuff, but it's a little more action-y, Mission Impossible in that way.
With
Recommend.
Keira Knightley being the Jason Bourne character.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting.
And it works. Like she, in the fights, she's physical, or her stunt person is physical, and it makes it work. Let's keep going. We got 2 more. Shrinking season 2. Brian, you haven't seen it?
I've seen like 1 or 2 episodes.
All right. Well, it's good. I'm not done with it yet either. I think we're on episode 7 of 9 or 10. Been really enjoying all the twists and turns of the new episode season. If you like the first season, season 2 continues it. Same tone. Nothing like big switch ups or anything like that. So just a progression of the story and some new twists and turns for the different characters. All right. And then last but not least, we are super pumped, but have not seen it yet. Severance season 2.
I think there was only 1 or 2 episodes out.
Yeah, I think 2
anyway.
episodes have been out, so we'll catch up on that. Are you gonna watch it this weekend, do you think? Is Anna into it?
I am so excited for Severance season 2. If you recall, I did a whole highbrow
Yeah,
High Brian
it was so
thing
good. It
about
made me wanna watch
season 1.
Go back and listen to that episode,
I'm
friend.
was huffing
too
his
busy
gas
playing
on that
Baldur's
one.
Gate.
Yeah. And don't worry, listeners. We got
There's-
some Baldur's Gate content coming for y'all.
There's no room to
eventually.
watch TV right now. I got dungeons to empty. All right, there are goblins to be smited.
Dude, I just want to watch y'all play. I just want y'all to screen share, and then I just want to sit in y'all party and just watch y'all play. I would legitimately.
You're gonna slap your face. You'll be like, "What the?
I just.
Right.
Why did you do that?"
I would hop on just to watch that as well. So Brian, let's make it happen. Add us on PS5.
I don't even know how to do that, but
Okay, we'll add you.
send me a tutorial.
I ain't gonna lie, I took it a little personal after all these years. Was I was like, man, I told him I helped with Elden Ring and these other games, and he just don't even add us. Like, dang.
Yeah, I don't know how.
He hasn't added me as a friend either. Don't worry.
I'm like,
It's
if
not
he
personal.
don't play, it's cool.
Maybe it
But I'm
is
like,
personal.
dang, he can't even add. We dropped. You call me Captain Vonnie every episode. I'm like, so it's not a hard name to remember. It ain't got no underscores or X's or little symbols. It sound how you spell it how it sound. I'm like, dang, maybe he just don't rock with a youngin like that.
Maybe not.
I didn't even know how to connect the extra remote controllers so Anna could play. Like that. That is
Jeez,
how.
Effing grandpa.
Yeah, I am absolutely inept when it comes to the PS5's capabilities.
All right.
Which is impressive.
Sounds like he just didn't want to add us though.
That's what I'm hearing, Wes.
No, I don't know how, and I don't know what for. Like it would be like, why am I adding Wes to
Because
my
you can
Last
screen
of
share
Us
with
game?
us. We can join
Yeah,
a
we can
party and
screen
chat. You
share.
can talk like
Screen
Discord.
share.
Sometimes,
Okay.
yeah, sometimes we just watch. Sometimes there's times where Kindle's like I'm doing stuff around the house and I'm on PlayStation. I just say, hey, Kindle, I'm cleaning up, but like screen share God of War, so I can watch you play through it while I'm doing other stuff, and I just watch that on TV.
This is a whole new world of content sharing that I don't know
It only takes
nothing
a couple.
about.
Yeah, we live in an era now where no one can lie about things that happen online because all of it is
It's all
streamed
recorded.
and shared. And so if someone says, "Oh, I did this," I'm like, "Well, if you ain't got a video or a picture of it, it never happened."
All right. Well, that'll wrap us up. We're excited for Severance season 2. Excited to see where they take the this conspiracy. Seems like everything's a conspiracy nowadays.
Yeah, it is. DARPA.
We'll see how all of these turned out. If there was anything on here that we missed or anything that you want to tell us that we should watch from the past couple months, hit us up in our DMs in Instagram or put it on a comment on our post and we'll check it out. I hope you enjoyed this. We don't have let's see, the next one after this, I don't think we're going to be ready for Captain America yet after this, but if we are, then that'll be your homework for this one. If not, we'll let you know on the Instagram what's coming up. So friends, see you later. Have a good one. Bye. Go Lakers.